Today on the Pizza Story podcast, we're headed to San Jose in the East Village to visit Caleb from the Last Round Tavern. Known for their signature house-baked sourdough, artisan sandwiches, and killer cocktails, they're redefining the local pizza scene. Caleb, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Erica. Really appreciate it.
Of course, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning here in sunny San Jose, California. Can't beat it. It's definitely a place where people come to hang out and enjoy the nice weather. It's a little expensive, but we're making it work. Happy to be here.
That's awesome. Well, I want to start by getting to know you and your culture. And were you born in San Jose?
Yes, I'm originally from San Jose. My whole family pretty much grew up here. Came from a Mexican American background. My grandparents immigrated from Mexico, and then my parents grew up here in the States. And this is a place of opportunity that I'm really blessed to be able to be a part of and make the most of. So trying to pay homage to the efforts and the sacrifices that my parents have made and my grandparents and ancestors before them. Um, yeah, I grew up in San Jose. I spent part of my childhood in Sacramento as well, um, but ended up going to college in Illinois. And
Hmm.
once I graduated from there, came back to San Jose, and this is where I've been investing all my time and energy for the last 15 years.
That's awesome. And can you kind of like paint me a picture of what it was like growing up for you?
Yeah, so actually, I grew up an only child, which I would say is different than most. I grew up in a big family. I do have a lot of cousins, aunts and uncles, and we're all pretty close knit families on both sides. My mom's and my dad's side. Grew up here in San Jose. Typical kind of a Mexican American family. Grew up with traditions and hanging out for the holidays and just spending that time together. So that's something that I'm really fortunate for. But ultimately, you're right. I think in order to grow and to expand and to kind of align with the vision that you see for yourself, you kind of have to kind of take your own path and kind of create a little bit of, I don't want to say separation, but kind of just take on your own hardships and your own struggles and kind of figure it out for yourself. So for me, that's kind of been something that I've used to kind of motivate me and get me to that next stage. But again, family's super important, and really wouldn't be here without the support of loved ones. So, um, but now we're here. I'm gonna be 33 next month, so I feel like you know as time goes on, obviously you learn a little bit more, and you kind of look back and you wish you would have done things a little bit differently. But I think that's kind of the name of the game is to be able to take it on the chin and learn lessons and just make better decisions next time. So I'm happy to have this opportunity to continue growing and to help as many people as I can.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Now, we always talk about the success of the pizzeria, but what a lot of people don't get to hear is the struggle that you went through in your life. So, would you be able to kind of talk about some of the hardships that you went through?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up boxing, hence the name The Last Round Tavern. My trainer, he was a big part of my childhood and kind of a second father figure to me. And along with my father and himself, and they made sure that I stayed on the right track growing up. Just growing up in the sport, boxing is so difficult and it teaches you a lot of life lessons. So for me, I'm fortunate enough to be able to have been put in certain situations at a young age and kind of those high stress scenarios when you have someone right in front of you, trying to hurt you. It teaches you a lot. So for me as a young kid, I owe a lot to the sport looking back. I think, I competed all the way up until I was about 19, 20 years old. Did
Wow.
amateur tournaments and the Junior Olympics and silver gloves and all of that. So just the training aspect of that and doing things when you don't feel like it or when you're tired or sore or just these skills that you learn that are going to serve you in the long run. I think having gone through that has definitely served me to be able to take the business to where it's going and to be able to, we opened up during COVID too. Well, not during, we opened up about 9 months before the pandemic. For me, this being my first endeavor and just trying to figure things out on the fly, it's kind of a blessing in disguise because at the time, it's was just trying to figure things out, and I didn't realize how severe the situation was. Just because for me, I think, well, I'm already kind of starting with the bare minimum. So luckily,
Yeah.
we didn't have a bunch of overhead. I didn't have to lay anyone off because it definitely didn't start off with a big team. Like restaurants that have been around for years and years and supporting a lot of families. Then I felt for those businesses, but for me personally, it was a time that I was able to use to um, make mistakes, learn, and then build those relationships as well. So again, going back to all the lessons I learned through the sport growing up, definitely served me during these hard times, opening up the business too.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And tell me about how you first got into pizza, because I know you said you went to Chicago and you came back. So where was your introduction to making pizza?
Initially, I mean, it's my favorite food. Grew up eating pizza. It's kind of just that communal food that everyone orders when they're having an event or a party or celebrating something. So, you know, when my family would get together and watch the pay-per-view fights, we'd get pizza or whatever it might be. So for me growing up, it's always been my favorite food. And traveled to the East Coast a handful of times and been to New Haven, and I was just very aware of what quality pizza was, and I want to learn how to make it. And being at the location where I'm at now, it was previously a pizzeria way back in the day in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And that was kind of their heyday. So moving into the shop, I knew I wanted to kind of bring that back, but do it my own way. I learned just a lot of YouTube books, the Pizza Bible, obviously from Tony G. He's, kind of a staple.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah. So, just kind of took it upon myself, and a lot of messed up pizzas were coming out of the oven, a lot of messed up dough balls, just figuring out the time and the temperature and messing with different flours and the whole bit. I just got super obsessed with it. So, I'd be in the kitchen till 2, 3 in the morning trying to figure out the dough. And it was exciting for me. I think just going all in on it, it resulted in what we have now, which is kind of a hybrid, you know, that we do tavern style pizza, but that wasn't the intention when I opened up. It just kind of evolved into what it is now. And yeah, I think just my obsession in trying to create something that I enjoy eating and that was aligned with, um, what I thought was important in pizza. And, fortunately, it resonates with our guests, and it's bringing folks in from other cities, and we'll get Midwesterners at the shop saying, that they've been looking for this style pizza for a long time, especially in the Bay Area. It's not very common. So,
Yeah.
but again, we use sourdough, so that's a very Bay Area West Coast thing. So it's a little different, but um, I love it, and I love seeing the faces on our customers when they take the first bite. It's there's nothing like it. So
Yeah, no, there is nothing like it, and I love that you're a self-taught pizza maker. Like, it's really cool to me that you read books and you went on YouTube and you taught yourself to be a pizza maker. And the other thing too is that I'm obsessed with sourdough. I have 2 sourdough babies in the fridge right now. I make, bread, pizza crust, everything, and I wanna hear from you is, like, what do you love the most about sourdough?
I think first of all, coming from like a I don't want to say like a health conscious background, but just being intentional about what we put on our bodies, right? I think when people
Yeah,
think of pizza, especially here in San Jose, a lot of like the old school pizzerias are very heavy, a lot of crust, a lot of dough, heavy on the cheese, just super greasy, oily. There's the pizza. It tastes good, but you don't feel so great afterwards, right? So for me, I think as I did more research and taste testing sourdough and messing with the starter and all that, I definitely felt the difference in my gut. So I think for me that was number one, and then just the flavor profile, a little tanginess to it. Uh,
yeah,
that some people enjoy more than others, but like I said, if when we do something that aligns with us and what we enjoy, we tend to find like-minded individuals in all senses, whether it's pizza or culture or anything else. But yeah, I think that's kind of been the biggest thing for me is making sure that what we're putting out to the public is obviously delicious and tastes really good, but is not gonna do damage in the long run. You know, it's a treat, but if you're gonna have pizza, hopefully you're intentional about it and you're mindful and not just eating just to get full. I guess you know.
Yeah, I agree with you. Pizza's almost become like an experience and really having something that is made with thoughtful ingredients and is well thought out.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think to take something so simple and something that was meant as food of immigrants, that had very little, and for it to become what it is now, I think it says a lot. So it just goes
Yeah.
back to taking care of things, really.
Yeah, and when you went from, like, learning how to make pizza and, like, watching YouTube videos, reading books, what kind of took you to this vision of, like, "I'm gonna open the Last Round Tavern"? Like, what was your creation at that point in time?
Yeah, so initially, I think I had been in the industry previously, just cutting my teeth, working as a cashier and making sandwiches and, just seeing the reactions of people when they enjoyed something and knowing that it's something that I had created. Granted, it was a lot
Yeah.
of work and there was times where, I just didn't know if this is something that I would want to do for the next 10 years, which it's been about that now. But really just being of service to people and creating something that is bringing them joy and making people happy, I think was kind of my biggest motivation to open something up that people could resonate with, come enjoy the space. And not only that, but to create a team where people felt empowered to kind of reach their full potential, whether it was in the kitchen or managing people or learning communication skills and all these life skills that you learn, at the restaurant that could serve them in whatever they choose to do, whether it's with the company or elsewhere, and just to create that space for individuals, I think was another motivation for me. So that's kind of where I'm at right now is I want to create as many leaders as possible so that they could go and inspire and lead other people in their own lives.
That's very, very cool. Now, when someone comes in, they obviously see your menu and you're going to have people that are like, okay, these are my favorites. And you probably know what those are. But when you were kind of curating that menu, like what was the thought process? Like, what did you put on there? Were there reasons why?
Yeah, so a lot of our signature pizzas they feature braised meat. So we have like a braised pork
Nice.
pizza, we do braised brisket, we roast our own turkey in house, and these menu items stem from sandwiches that I learned from my dad actually, who didn't have any culinary background or trained chef or any of that. He just had fun on the grill. So learning these techniques and these flavor profiles from him, kind of took that and figured, how do we make it work on the pizza? And that's kind of, they were influenced by, your typical sandwiches. You have your braised brisket sandwich, which isn't a Texas style brisket. It's more so um, like an Italian style braised brisket when you braise it in wine broth and different seasonings.
Wow.
So it's not smoked. So it's a little different, but it works for the pizza. And
Hmm.
while with that Cuban pizza, it's our take on the Cuban sandwich. But instead of the pickles, we do the pepperoncinis on there. Adds a little bite to it. So that's that. But again, one of my favorite pizzas is margarita with pepperoni, or we do the Wrigleyville,
Hmm.
and we get that. We use Marconi from Chicago for the hot giardiniera and the Italian sausage. So very simple pizza,
Wow.
but it works really really nice. So I tend to lean more towards the simplistic, straightforward pies, but. That Cubano pizza has kind of been a fan favorite since day one. Can't find it anywhere else.
Yeah, that's a really cool twist on a pizza that I don't hear about often. Will you tell me about that one?
Yeah, so, basically on the Cuban sandwich, right, you have your ham, your pulled pork, salami, your Swiss cheese, and your pickles. And for the shop, kind of took that and just see what worked. We do a garlic base sauce and then we add all those three meats on there. And then it's funny when we were taste testing these pizzas, I don't know what had prompted us to try it with spinach, but we throw like fresh spinach on there afterward, and then we do like a nice mustard sauce that isn't super tangy. We cut it with with mayo and a few other things, and it just offers like a nice sweet, savory finish to the salty meat and all else. So it just works really well. I think the thing that helped me out was just not thinking too much about it, honestly. Just like throwing it on there and it worked. So it wasn't meant to be this big fan favorite pizza that it's turning out to be. It was just meant to, we need something on the menu. What am I gonna do? So yeah, people really enjoy it.
That's awesome. I love not only that you took your background in boxing and you can really see that you've incorporated that into like your identity and your brand, but also just these different pizzas that, like these things that you grew up making. And now you're kind of putting those on pizza and making those work, which I think is the whole idea of making pizza. It's like, my grandparents taught me. So when I make food, like they weren't trained chefs either. They were just, they were immigrants from Italy and they learned how to cook and bake. And I think that's the way in a lot of cases.
Of course, yeah. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's just if we're able to carry on what we grew up with, and again going back to tradition and those familial roots. I think it's our job, our duty to make the most of them and to kind of take it to the next level. Hopefully I'm doing right by my parents and my family. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's say somebody comes in. What's something that they wouldn't necessarily know about you guys that you would want them to know?
What's funny is, it's going to be 7 years since we opened up, and we're getting a lot of new people coming in who've been in the neighborhood. It's their first time, and a lot of them think we just opened up, or they're asking when the grand opening is. I let them know, we've actually been here for quite a minute. We didn't have a grand opening. I opened up very low key, just quiet, turned on the open sign and see what was going to happen. But now, since I've been able to, you know, practice on our systems and fine tune obviously the ingredients and the product itself and the service and hospitality aspect of it, a lot of people say, "Man, if I would have known it was like this, I would have been in, years ago." But one thing that I do tell people is like, well, if you were to come in years ago, it wasn't what it is now. It's taken a long time to figure all this out. So it's just interesting, just because I've been in the trenches and it's been a grind since day one, since before opening. Really, it's been extremely difficult. So for me, it's just interesting to hear people's perspectives on, them thinking that this is what it is since the very beginning, and it's definitely not. It's been a process. So I guess really, for anyone really starting out, just know it's going to take a long time to get it to a place where you're a little bit more comfortable with it, especially if it's your first time. So now that I have this experience, I'm confident in my abilities to, whether it's starting a new concept or opening up another location. Now I know how to make a round pizza, as opposed to a oddly shaped one, which people enjoyed. It worked in my favor either because they felt sorry for me or thought it was uh
I'm sure it
charming
still
or
tasted good.
yeah, you know. Uh, so I've been fortunate in that sense, but yeah, I think just all the work that has gone into making it what it is today, I think that's something that most people wouldn't know unless you've actually done it.
Yeah, I think that anything worthwhile, like you're gonna have that the blood, sweat, and tears, the times where it's hard, where you want to quit, don't want to do it anymore. But then if you continue and you persist, then you can actually create it into what you want.
Of course. Yeah. And I think that's the name of the game where each step forward that you take, you're gonna have a new hardship. But if you're able to get through enough of them, then you build thicker skin and okay, this is a new one. I haven't been through this before, but I've experienced this feeling in the past and I've gotten through it. So just keep pushing, see what happens, and wake up and you do it all over again.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I will tell you, I'm the one that, when the hardship's happening, I'm like, this sucks.
Mhm.
But then I'm like, all right, well, I guess I just need to like push through it. So I think that's with anything that you're doing in life is just you're gonna have barriers.
Yep.
Now, What has pizza meant for your family?
I think just it's been an opportunity just to spend time, make memories, you know? I think
Yeah.
that's what it's come down to is just spending that time together.
Yeah, there's something special about a family business, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think yeah, it's definitely yeah, brought a lot of things to light. I think, where these sorts of things could really tear families apart or, I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
But I think if you're able to kind of create, you learn boundaries and you learn about limits and you learn about respecting people's opinions and all these things. And for me, I mean, that's been the biggest thing. It's allowed me the opportunity to grow, obviously, as a young man and as my own person, and just making sure that I stick with my gut, and that I'm operating in alignment with my values and all of that, and just obviously keeping everyone else in mind and what they might need, and making sure that people are taken care of. So, um, yeah, that's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. You're absolutely right about that. Now, Caleb, if somebody wants to find you guys, what's the easiest way to find you?
Instagram really at the last round SJ. Yeah, we're most active on there. Looking to get more involved in YouTube and all these other things, but it's always been about the product first, and then everything else kind of follows. So that's where we're at. But Instagram at the last round SJ.
Yeah. No, that's the right viewpoint. My dad is the same way. He focuses his entire focus is on the product. And then he has me for the marketing. So it works out. Yeah. So guys, I want you to go and follow them. The Last Round SJ on Instagram. If you're out in San Jose or if you're in the area, go and see them. Their food looks absolutely incredible. I mean, I've been looking at the pizzas, the sandwiches, even the cocktails if you drink. Um, Everything that you guys are doing is awesome. And Caleb, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate the opportunity.